conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. She's the founder and chief marketing officer using superpowers of branding, loyalty, and marketing strategy for all the clients. And of course, an entrepreneur, none other than Miss Sheila Butler.
Hey there. Great to see you again, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
Likewise, Miss Sheila, and thank you so much for being part again to one of my podcasts. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sure. So I'm Sheila Butler. I live in the Orlando, Florida area near Walt Disney World. And yes, I started Butler Marketing Group back in May of 2023 using my superpowers of branding, loyalty, marketing strategy, and part-time chief marketing officer services. And I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, and I like that superpower too, Miss Sheila. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Thank you. And today, let's talk about something good, brand transformation. So, most transformative start with the catalyst. In your experience, is it more often reactive, burning platform like competitor disruption or reputational crisis or proactive golden opportunity? How
I
does
think
this
it's
origin?
I think it's the proactive golden opportunity. And here's
Mhm.
why, at least for the clients that have been attracted to come to my company. Um, the reason I say that is often the people that I work with they're adding a new service line to their business. And so
Okay.
they went from this is who we are and how we describe ourselves to now there's something broader. Or they've purchased another company. And so they again have more services or products. One client was a healthcare staffing company that was merging in private equity. So they had to take these disparate companies, put them together, and create a new parent. And sometimes I've done personal branding work with just individuals, and they're at a change in their life. Maybe they've left corporate America and they're thinking about being a consultant, or they're thinking about pivoting to a different industry. And so that's why it's proactive, because people have made intentional decisions. And now they realize that how they describe their product, their service, their company, or even themselves needs to pivot along to keep up with the change. And so that's where the transformation piece comes, because when you think about something, sometimes there are small changes that are like tiny little evolutions. But when it's a new service line or a new business or a career pivot, that's really more the transformative change. It's step change, and all of the marketing narratives have to follow that.
Interesting, Miss Sheila. And before the transformation, there's usually a gap between how the brand sees itself and how the market sees it. What are the most telling symptoms of this brand reality disconnect that leaders should look for the data and customers' feedback?
Okay, so one of my favorites is, because we're all using AI so much more today. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes a client will come to me and they say, well, I went into ChatGPT. We'll just pick one AI. I
Okay.
put it in there and I put in the information about my website, and what it produced for me. That's not accurate. That's not who we are. And I'm like, are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure it went to your website and it went to your LinkedIn profile, your
Yes.
company profile, your individual profile, and it just grabbed what it saw. So maybe you're not as differentiated as what you think you are in your head. And so sometimes that's where the disconnect starts, is that businesses or individuals feel like they're so much more well defined and distinct than what maybe others perceive them to be.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, Miss Sheila. The unchangeable core. In the midst of change, what must remain constant? How do you identify and fiercely protect the brand's timeless, non negotiable core and changing everything else about it?
Yeah. So well, there are a couple of things that need to remain consistent. So I'm going to touch on two different elements because they're very different.
Mm-hmm.
One is that whole notion of A company that's steeped in tradition. Like I'll take Disney because I worked at Disney and I live near Disney and I worked with them a lot. So they're steeped in the tradition of Walt Disney, the entrepreneur and the creative genius. And yet you also have this moment where you go, but we need to innovate. We need to continue to evolve our brand. And so they add in, Lucasfilm, the Star Wars IP and
Hmm.
Marvel and so forth. So there's a link to tradition, but also this nod that we need to evolve and expand our brand and be innovative. So another element is that when you think about branding and consistency, part of it isn't necessarily when we redefine what the brand is. So we redefine our competitive set, we redefine our core equities, what we do every day, or we redefine what our brand pillars are, and even the brand promise, because that evolves when your company evolves or you as an individual evolves. However, the consistency comes in as once you redefine what those things are for your new evolving brand, you then have to be consistent in how you message that over and over and over again, because that's only through the consistency that people will then seed those new brand associations that they want their client or their ideal customer to believe in the brand.
To believe with a brand to be successful, for sure. The transformation often requires brand surgery, consciously retiring a beloved product, a legacy audience, or historic tagline. How do you build the case and courage to walk away from that once worked but now holds you back?
Yep. Oh, well, you know what? That that is where a lot of brands can get tripped up, right?
True.
Um, think about Cracker Barrel, this chain of sort of casual dining that they have in here in North America. They tried to create a new look and feel for their brand, and there was such a revolt that they've gone back to what their brand logo was and what their restaurants and country stores stand for, because there's an ownership that people have, your customers have in your brand, and sometimes they don't want to let that go. So you may think, I want to evolve my brand, and surely my loyal customers will go with me. And in that case, the customer said, Absolutely not. That we don't
Hmm.
like what you stand for in the new one. We want to go back to where you were." And it was a big revolt, and so the brand had to go back. So never underestimate the ownership that your ideal customer base has in your brand and what it stands for. And so that's where a great deal of consumer insights and work has to go into before you start that branding exercise, to think about how do we want to evolve the brand, because you also need to understand what are the associations that people have with your brand, and do you like those associations? Are they positive or are they not, or are they maybe neutral?
Miss Sheila, let's talk about the future backlands. Instead of extrapolating from today, you advocate looking from the future back. What does the strategic process look like in practice? So, how do you define a credible future state and work backward to build a brand that will thrive there?
So I start typically, as we're doing the branding work, we'll start with the consumer insights, we'll start with the competitive framework and sort of the base things about what do we stand for, what do we want to do and say, and what do we want people to associate with our brand.
Yes.
Then you sort of, if you can, just set that aside for a minute and then think about what are all the external factors and internal factors within the organization that may impact that brand over the next 3 to 5 years. And as so, think about external factors. It could be the political environment. It could be economics. It could be AI and so forth. Like a whole bunch of different things. You're gonna come up with a list of like 20 different things. The internal
Hmm.
factors may not be as big, but it could be like a CEO change, or the company splinters off and they separate out to two different legal entities. All these different things, and then you go back to the branding work that you did and say, okay, does the work that we've done stand the test of time for the next 3 to 5 years? Will that brand promise hold up and still be believable and credible? and the point of difference if these external and internal factors come to be. And then that's where you know that you're defining and redefining a brand in a way that it gives it the breadth to grow in the next 3 to 5 years. So you can be consistent and you can see that consistency over and over again. What I would say is, I think sometimes companies get lost when they think about this is who I am right now, but where you want to go is how you need to brand. And then you need to take your customers on the journey to say, this is what my brand is now. This is what I'm going to be in the future. And this is how, these are the reasons why you can believe that is true. And you slowly bring your ideal customer along for the journey.
Indeed, people doesn't like changes, so you need to go back for sure to a better product. So let's talk about the alchemy of change, strategy, story, and internal culture. Miss Sheila, the transformation strategy can live in a PDF, right? So, how do you turn a complex brand strategy into a simple, compelling internal story that every employee can understand, remember, and retell?
So it takes a great deal of work. So actually, I'm in a phase with one of my clients right now to where we've redefined what their brand is and what it stands for in a way that's really, really exciting. And now we're ready to roll out what that branding work is to the entire company so that people understand here are the talking points. Here's what we're going to include in written, documentation externally as well as internally from an HR perspective for their employee base. You have to teach everyone what your brand is and what it stands for, and then get them to be aligned with it so that when someone says, "Hey, where do you work and what business are you in?" that they have that elevator pitch that they can just nail like that over and over and over again because they believe in what that brand message is. They've been trained on what that is, and it's now new muscle memory for them in a way. You want every single person in your company to be a brand ambassador.
Mm, definitely. And Miss Sheila, let's talk about the identity blueprint. A new brand identity like logo, visual system, voice is the most visible sign.
Yep.
Beyond aesthetics, how do you ensure every design choice is a direct tangible expression of the new strategic intent?
Great question. Because what I will tell you is that all the brand strategy work that I've talked about so far around consumer insights, competitive framework, core equities, core identity and brand pillars and brand promise, all those things are the things that are very easy to skip over if you don't have a brand strategist to lean on, like Butler Marketing Group, because people will go to, oh, the name of my company is X, and so I've created some logos, and what do you think, and here are a couple taglines. And I go, but where did that's not seated in any strategy work. You just went to the fun sexy stuff that to your point, that's what people see.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to force yourself to not go there. But when you are ready, once you have that brand strategy layer, I take things like the brand personality. Actually, that's one of the best places to zero in. When I work with a company and we're defining a service, a product, their company themselves, an individual, we'll take the brand personality and we probably have 20 or 30 different brand personality descriptions so that if you were to have a conversation with that brand, it feels like a living, breathing person. You know how it sounds, you know what how it dresses, like all these different things, because they're very evocative descriptions of the brand personality. I take those, and then you start to think about what's a font that reflects this brand personality? What are the colors that reflect this brand personality? And then you think about the look and feel of the logo. How do I want someone to feel when they interact with my brand? That those elements around brand personality give you a really good starting point to then think about the visual identity of the brand.
A brand is a promise made by a culture, Miss Sheila. What comes first, trying to change the external brand expression and hoping cultures follows, or doing the deep, hard work of a cultural change first?
I think that they need to be in concert, but often the brand will likely dictate the culture evolution.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great deal of change management that goes into a large scale rebrand because most likely the people that you hire may be different if you're really trying to make a big pivot with your brand. Um, Definitely how you approach your business is going to be different. And so you have to think about every single thing that you know and assume about a company, and then think about with this rebrand, do I need to make different decisions? Do I need to change my processes? How do I look at the brand from the inside out and the outside in?
Very well said, Miss Sheila. Very well said indeed. For a loyal customers and employees, a radical shift can feel jarring or even like a betrayal. How do you manage a transition respectfully, honoring the past while clearly championing the future without creating whiplash?
Well, I think that there are a couple different audiences for this. One is the internal audience, which is why when I work, so my process is called Butler Branding Bootcamp, and it's the
Okay.
proprietary process that I use to go through these things. And I typically work with maybe 6 or 7 of the influencers and decision makers at the top of the house. So essentially the C suite or executive leadership team to go through all the branding work. And I take them on that journey step by step and gain alignment as though you're laying bricks in a foundation. And only after you get alignment on this layer do you add the next layer of bricks. Once you have that alignment and it sticks, then that's where you can start to roll it out across the rest of the organization because they've all bought into and contributed to the brand. I'm not here to tell them what their brand is. I'm here to almost like excavate it from them and help them find the words. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think that when you think about your customer base, you do have to go a little bit slowly, which is why in that example that I used of the restaurant chain in North America, they didn't go slowly and it really did backfire on them. The question is, how slow is slow? And do you wait for your customers to catch up? Or sometimes what brands do is they have smaller iterations of the brand. And so it's more subtle over a longer period of time to bring the customers on the journey. It sometimes you need to make those strategic decisions and it depends upon what business you're in. How big is the brand change? How big is the shift in your business that actually was the trigger and the impetus for the new branding work?
Miss Sheila, let's talk about the human dimension, leadership, and buy in. The leadership's role. This is not a marketing project, it is a CEO level priority. What is the unique, non negotiable, and non delegatable role of the CEO of brand's transformation? What must they do personally that no one else can?
Well, culture starts at the top of the house. Leadership
Yes.
starts at the top of the house. And so the CEO needs to be the biggest brand ambassador and be out there demonstrating the values and vision and mission of this new brand, the reasons that everyone can believe, what the brand promises, all those things. If the CEO isn't doing it, it's very hard to push that from the lower levels up towards the top. Ideally, it's coming from all different layers at the same time, but the CEO has to be front and center.
Well, that is empowering answer, Miss Sheila, and totally empowering. Should a new brand be crafted by a small visionary team and presented or built through a wide co-creation with employees and customers? What are the trades off between speed, clarity, and buy-in authenticity?
So when I shared that I typically have a group of maybe 6 or so people working on the branding work, I think it becomes very difficult if you have more people than that because you are sort of storming and norming and coming up with, is this the right brand promise? Is it something else? Are these the right words? Because words matter. in when it comes to the branding elements. I think when it's so broad and you have so many different stakeholders, it's very, very difficult to get alignment. And I've seen it to where companies have invited all of the employees to vote on the new logos. And so we would look at what are the top three logos and the bottom three after out of all the choices that we gave them. But at the end of the day, it's really, really difficult to include everyone. But you also want to be telling people within the organization, hey, you're not involved in this, but here are some of the things we're working on, and we're so excited to tell you about it when we're at that point to roll it out, so that they know it's coming. They're preparing for what that change is. They just don't know what it is yet.
Mm, definitely. The measurement and the long game, Miss Sheila. Beyond the launch day is just a day one. What does the true transformation roadmap look like for the 12, 24, and 36 months after being revealed? How do you institutionalize the new brand?
Well, a lot of it are listening posts, right? So as
Yes.
you start to roll out your brand promise, are you hearing it repeated back to you by your customers that they're looking for what you're promising? They will get if they work with you and your business. I think that you can also have unaided and aided market research awareness studies to really understand if did they come up with this association or the things that I wanted them to remember about the brand? Did I have to prompt them? Did I have to aid them in that? Or was it unaided? They just naturally brought up my brand and, commented on a couple of things that I wanted them to hit on. And again, it takes consistency in order for both the aided and especially the unaided to come to bear within that research. But you constantly want to be listening.
Yes, definitely. And Miss Sheila, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my food 101 in sixth season as well. I don't know what's happening to my tagline, but well, people, please do listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Sheila, tell us, based on all you've seen, what is the single most common avoidable mistake leaders make when embarking on a brand transformation that almost guarantees it will under deliver or fail?
Not gaining alignment. You have to have alignment. If one part of the organization believes that the brand promise is this and the rest of the folks don't want to believe in that, repeat that, et cetera, you're going to really struggle. So you have to have that alignment along the way, every single decision that's made about the brand, and then be more like so much more deeply consistent than what you ever think is necessary.
Mm, definitely. And Miss Sheila Butler, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Absolutely. So if they want to learn more, they can go to butlermg.com. So Butler Marketing Group. They can reach me, Sheila at butlermg.com. And if they're interested in my show, they can take a look at Marketing Over Bourbon, which is on YouTube as well as where people listen or watch their podcasts.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Sheila Butler because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy like this to rise. So I have one more question, Miss Sheila. At its heart, is a successful brand transformation fundamentally about changing perception, or is it about changing reality?
Mm, more perception than reality, but depending upon the change, it might be a little bit of
Yes,
both. Yep.
definitely. Both people, both. And one more question before I will let you go, Miss Sheila. And I'm inviting you to please do come over to my Entrepreneurship 101 and let's talk about business mindset
Yeah,
or entrepreneurship mindset. In
I'm in.
every organization, there are hidden influencer. How do you identify and empower these internal brand champions, often outside the marketing department, and become the authentic evangelist for the change?
Oh, so sorry, I'm going to share one of my secret sauces with you. As I'm doing that
Please.
brand identity work, the strategy work, and I shared that I roughly have 6 or so people, almost always one of the people, besides, of course, like the CEO,
Yes.
one of them is the chief financial officer. Do you want to know why? Because
Why?
at some point in time, once we set the brand strategy work, then to your point, you mentioned the creative look and feel, right? The logo, the so forth. And then you take that and you have to then create marketing materials and you have to create a marketing campaign. That CFO will better understand why he's getting pulled into reviewing invoices for future marketing work if he's or she have participated in the branding work. They then better understand the meaning of the marketing work and how it ties to the financial goals and objectives of the organization.
Very well said, Miss Sheila, and thank you so much for your time.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Maricon people, see you soon.